really important when we're interacting in these very, niche communities like retro speedrunning. And to have people, be welcoming and helpful just makes it so much more easy to get into something that could really honestly be overwhelming. There's an incredible barrier to entry when considering the burden of knowledge that's associated with learning a new speedrun or learning your first speedrun.
Yeah, absolutely. And this game in particular is really great, I think, for that. Not only just because of the community, but there's a wealth of information and tutorials out there. If this is going to be a first speed run, it's a very difficult speed run for sure, but you definitely have the support and the information to get you there for sure.
I totally agree.
So, sorry, go ahead, Penny.
No.
Okay, fine, I'll go. So for those of you who are just tuning in, this is the first match of the semifinals race. This is actually the third race within that match. We're gonna have two semifinal matches. This is the first match of the two, and this is best out of three. KB won the first match, Arcus won the second, and so this right here, this race you're watching right here, is going to decide who moves on to the finals, Arcus or Knucklebuster.
And that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, enough of that nonsense, Fab. Let's get back to the race because we are in game 3. This is incredibly close. We have Knucklebuster, the dual title, low percent and pacifist world record holder, versus Arcus, the current any percent world record holder. And this is incredibly close.
Yeah, again, here we are. We're sans errors and synced up going into the door for 2-3.
Yeah, I think both had 106 stores there, so very, very comparable Act 2s. To be interested to see this time if Knucklebuster can grab the art of the fire wheel without getting hung up and having to double back. That was a pretty costly mistake in the last race. I don't think it totally cost him, but you have to wonder if those kind of things don't start to add up over the course of the race and ultimately be your demise.
Yeah, so the art of the fire wheel that they just picked up right there is absolutely necessary as a sub weapon to take into the boss. This is one of the only bosses in the game where you don't get spin slash, and the best way to kill this boss is with that art of the fire wheel, which can deal 3 damage for every flame that you throw out. So it really is the fastest way to get to this boss, which is called Massacre. And when you miss that art of the fire wheel, you've either got to go back or get it, or find the backup on this 3-2, which takes you way out of the way and takes a lot of time. So very important to pick that up in 3-1 if you can.
Yeah, we saw KB tried to set up for the double scree there, but the birds didn't play nice, so unfortunately he wasn't able to do it.
Wow!
Arcus takes what, honestly, outside of dying to the Act 6 bosses, what is probably the most costly mistake in this run.
Yeah, that's a good 45 to 50 second death right there. And if KB is watching this match, if he knows, this is huge for him. This is a big opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, KB can kind of take his foot off the gas and just turn the cruise on, and he can play this very, very safe, very close to the chest. It's gonna take a very, very large mistake or series of large mistakes to close the difference here between the two racers now.
And I'm not sure if Arcus remembered that he needed to go back and get the art of the fire wheel back up on this stage. He initially jumped and tried to throw the flame there, but obviously nothing came out because he didn't get the sub weapon, so he had to use low percent strats there to kill back.
Yeah, and that's going to be an additional large time loss. There's a lot of time there spent in that fight, kind of going back and forth and just slashing at bullets. And I think you're right. I think he kind of forgot that he needed to go back and pick up the backup art of the fire wheel, because it's so uncommon. You don't ever do that in any percent PB attempts, and honestly, taking a death there is kind of uncommon to begin with.
Yeah, very true. If you die at that area in a regular attempt, you're just resetting and starting over again. That's not something you'd ever go for. in PB attempts. And as we talked about earlier, perfectly reasonable for Argus to make those sort of oversights. This is not his current speed game. This is a game he has an immense amount of experience in running, but currently he's running Ninja Gaiden 2. So not sure how much training or practice he did for these races. To me, it's incredible he's been able to perform to this level, while running Ninja Gaiden 2 40 hours a week.
Right. I kind of wish I could see it back. I watched both of the runners approach the butt clench cliff, and I could have swore I saw Arcus, do his pretty standard pause and wait strategy. I wonder if he waited too long or if he jumped too soon, didn't quite get far enough off of the edge. But yeah, that backwards boost off of that clubber enemy at the end of 3-2 was very, very costly, unfortunately. And he's kind of, I don't want to say entirely out of it at this point, because as we've seen in previous weeks, anything can happen, but he does need a bit of a miracle here to catch back up.
Yeah, absolutely. As we were saying earlier, if KB is aware that Arcus has made that error, he can really just rest and go for safety strats here and take it easy and make sure he gets through. We'll find that out probably once he gets to the demon. If he chooses to kill the tail, we'll probably know that he was able to get some sort of info, whether he's watching the stream or that he knows that Arcus took that death.
Right. Yeah. If we see KB kill the tail, I think we know for certain that he is watching. But if I'm being honest, I don't think he is. I could be mistaken, but I think in the past I've always heard him say that he doesn't prefer to. So I'd be surprised if we see him kill the tail at the end of this race.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only person that I was relatively sure was watching last week was Arcus. And as we talked about earlier, KB, a streamer who doesn't use a cam, doesn't use a mic. I would imagine somebody who has that sort of setup is probably locking themselves down and not paying attention to anything and just running the game pure, focusing on only one thing, keeping all those distractions to a minimum. So
right. But like we saw in the first race, Arcus died to the demon, and that could just as easily happen to Knucklebuster. And that is the truly most costly mistake in this run. And KB took a really scary knockback there from that leopard enemy. Was worried for a second. But yeah, if KB were to take a death on Jakio or the demon, that would be the perfect situation for Arcus to get back within striking distance.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out here how far behind he is. I know it's probably a minute or so. He's actually making decent time though otherwise.
Yeah, let's pay close attention here when Knucklebuster loads out of 5-4 and begins 6-1. Fade to full black at right around 8:54, 8:55.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to see where Arcus gets through there. And again, I think now that we're into Act 6 with KB, there's not a whole lot of places that you can die in Act 6 that are going to be comparable losses. The only place I can really think of is at the exit door of 6-2 going into 6-3.
Sure.
But even there, that's only if you've got prior deaths and he doesn't have any. So it's really just the boss fights at this point. It's going to have to be a boss room fight because he doesn't have any prior deaths, nothing to send him back to the beginning. So it's really just whether or not he dies at the demon.
I agree. I think Arcus is
wanting Beerful's ghost, and he gets it.
Oh, what a legend. Arcus manipulating a glitch in the game to spawn a hidden enemy, kind of make him appear out of thin air, that the Ninja Gaiden community lovingly refers to as Beerful of Belly's ghost. I think Arcus kind of knows, that he's pretty out of it at this point, and I think that was a really nice nod to the rest of the community.
Very much so. Very, very much so. B-Fob, an OG Ninja Gaiden runner. If I remember the story correctly, there's a way in Ninja Gaiden to do backwards flips, and if you frame perfectly, press back and jump over and over and over again, you can do a succession of backflips. And apparently, that was a competition that a lot of ninjas did back in the day. And while he was doing that, he decided that was a really good area to practice. It's a really long runway to practice those on. And he accidentally spawned what's now affectionately known as Beerful's Ghost.
Yeah. But yeah, what an incredible legend. I really, really appreciate that nod to the rest of the Ninja Gaiden community. And now we can only hope that Knuckle Buster goes in the final bosses and dies.
That is the only hope for Arcus at this point. And he probably knows that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm sure he's, there's enough calculated there. If KB does die at the bosses here, I don't think he'll have enough time to catch Arcus. So it really is just whether or not he makes it through here.
Yeah, I think so. I'd be interested to see if KB opts for a tail kill here on the demon. I think that'll be a big sign as to what kind of information he has available to him. Let's see if Knuckle Buster's able to close it out and take one from the legend. Really nice head kill.
All right, yeah, he's skipping the tail.
I love it. I respect it. He's kind of
he
getting
took
balled
an
up here
extra
with the
hit.
shrimp.
Ooh.
Okay, closes it out. Knuckle
That
Buster
guy-
with the big 2-1 over Arcus.
Wow, that got really close there for a second. GG's.
Started to get a little hairy, but he was able to clutch it out. Arcus with the unfortunate death at the end of 3-2, which, like we talked about, other than dying on the Act 6 bosses, probably the most costly mistake over the course of the run. But yeah, Knuckle Buster able to beat the man himself and take home a semifinals win.
It's an interesting death to see from Arcus, because in previous races, Arcus had been using what's probably the safest strat there, which is you just spawn the cat there, and then you wait, you jump over it, and then you jump the cliff, and it loses about 1.5 to 2 seconds, but it is by far the safest. And of course, it looks like he decided to go against that, not use that strat, try to use something faster, because he knew he had a faster opponent to beat today. And that's what ended up being the undoing on race number 3.
Right. I think that is what happened. And you hate to see it because, like you said, up until today, he was choosing the slowest and most safe and consistent strat there out of all the possible strategies. But, that's kind of the danger of adjusting your strategies on the fly in a race scenario. If you've been doing something over the course of a couple weeks, you kind of just got to stick with it. That's programmed in your hands and in your muscle memory and in your brain. And sometimes if you try to make an adjustment, dynamically like that you haven't been practicing or utilizing recently, you can see, scenarios like that where, your hands don't communicate properly with your brain and you end up in the bottom of a pit.
Yep, that is absolutely correct. And, as I can't say that I blame him for switching strats, though. I mean, of course, he's going up against Knuckle Buster, and we saw in the first 2 races that they were incredibly close throughout. And, you can't blame him for thinking, hey, I need this extra 1.5 to 2 seconds of time against an opponent like KB. We're going to have to jettison this super straight safe strat and go for something more difficult. Let's see if we can get the brackets finished up here, and that way we can see an updated look of what's going on. There it is. We've got Arcus moves over to the 3rd place match, which will start after our semifinals get completed, and then Knuckle Buster is going on to the finals. And he will face the winner of our next match, which is going to be Beerful and the Retro Runner. Fenny, what do you think about that one?
Beerful of Belly and Retro Runner is a very interesting match to me. I think, if I'm being honest, I think Retro Runner is the best Ninja Gaiden player in the world currently. And not for lack of trying, right? The dude plays the game literally every day. And, he has the fire, he has the passion, he wants that world record. But that being said, this is something that you and I have talked about in the past. Retro Runner, not really the best racer. When they're doing PB attempts, especially any percent PB attempts, is really different than race strategy or race mentality. And while Retro Runner might be kind of the Maserati of Ninja Gaiden runners, that's not always what wins out. As we saw in our previous match, sometimes it's not all about speed.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking a little bit about this before the cast, and Beer Full of Belly, incredibly consistent, incredibly talented. Retro Runner, just pure speed. And we were saying, you know, sometimes Retro Runner will make a mistake during the course of these races, but he is so fast it almost doesn't matter. And it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. Big GGs to Arcus and Knucklebuster. Huge thank you to both of these runners for participating. We will see Knucklebuster again in the finals. And we're going to go set up for our next semifinal match against that's going to be Beer Full of Belly and the Retro Runner coming up in a few short minutes. And we will be right back. Hang tight. Welcome back, everybody. So we're about to begin our second match of the evening. Finney is going to take a break from us, and we're going to be joined by Seamless Link in the booth. Seamless, what's going on?
What's up, Fab? I am excited. That was one amazing, wild first race. I'm excited to see what our racers this time have in store for us. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Yep. So as a reminder, if anyone's just now tuning in, our last race was Arcus and KB. KB won the first race. Arcus won the second. KB took the third. It's a best out of 3 for these semifinal races. So KB moved on to the finals round, and we will see Arcus again for the third place round, for the third place match.
Yep, and one of the big stories of this match too that's super interesting coming in is that Beerful of Belly is the only runner so far that hasn't lost a race. So of all the 4 people that got here today, the Retro Runner lost one in the group stages, but BFOB so far has been undefeated in races. We'll see if that can hold up today, or if the Retro Runner is going to be so fast that BFOB can't keep up. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, so these 2 racers, this is going to be a really good one. We've got the Retro Runner, obviously, who's been grinding this game for world record really for a little over 2 years now. He's got a second place time. He's got many 11:38s and 11:39s in that quest for world record. He's going up against BFOB, or Beerful of Belly, who's been playing this game for quite a while as well, one of the original Ninja Gaiden runners, and he's got a 5th place time on SRC of an 11:48. So no slouch himself either, and as Seamless just said, has not lost a single race thus far in the NRL. From last round, looks like BFOB's time were 12:19 and a 12:08. And Retro Runner's times were 12:15 and an 11:41, which is probably the fastest race time ever live for Ninja Gaiden 1. I've got to assume that that's never been done before, Seamless.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredible time if you think about all the marathons, the presentations with people, you know, really showcasing the game, highlighting it out to the communities. It's wild to put up an 11:41, one of the faster times we've seen. And really, there's, you know, 2 people in the world that are putting up times that low in the 11:40s, and it's Arcus and Retro Runner. It's a time, you know, with Beerful's PB at 11:48. He's very consistent, but there's some raw speed in the Retro Runner that, you know, Beerful would have to PB using race strats in order to get.
That's right. And we were talking about earlier, you know, Retro Runner has had some inconsistencies throughout these races that we haven't seen yet from Beerful of Belly. He's probably the most consistent runner thus far in this tournament. But Retro Runner is just pure speed. And as we were saying earlier, to some degree, you can make up for that lack of consistency with having just such fast runs like an 11:41.
Absolutely. And you're going to see, you know, how long do they stick to the tiles? How fast can they get up and off walls? And a lot of things like that. You saw BFOB getting stuck a little bit doing the right side, best side. And that put him, the Retro Runner, just a little bit ahead. And when you get to racers and runners of this caliber, what we're going to be noticing is, you know, more often than not, it's not the big mistakes that set people apart. You're going to see the leads changing and moving forward little by little on tiny little things like Beerful right there getting stuck a little doing the drop. Retro Runner had a nice clean drop, and again, he's getting put ahead just little by little, seconds at a time, and that could be a big decision changer.
That's right. You know, when we started off in group stages, we started off with 23 racers from all different sorts of time frames, and you saw a huge difference between, you know, wins usually, you know, many seconds away from second place. And these races are just going to get tighter and tighter as we go on. And you know, as we saw with Arcus and KB, you know, less than 10 seconds time frame that decided, you know, winner and loser.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the factors that's going to be involved in this one, the same as the last race, is that the Retro Runner is capable of a center platform Jackio fight. And it's one of those things that can kind of cure some of those sins. If he did get stuck behind by maybe a second or two, he can compensate for not doing a double bird boost, for taking his pure knockback by doing a plate kill. It's a thing that not many people can do, and it's nice to have in your book of tricks.
That's very true. A plate kill known as like a 1.5 rounder, and that is an entire cycle faster than Beer Full of Belly's fastest, which is a 2.5 cycle. So that's 4 seconds just right there. If they both do their fastest boss kill on Jackio, Beer Full of Belly's coming away 4 seconds behind, and that is a big deal.
Absolutely. In 4 seconds, in PB attempts, 4 seconds in races can mean the world. We've had some of these races decided by about 4 seconds. It's absolutely huge, but Beer Full of Belly, don't count them out. I always said anytime you have something in the game named after you, you have to be a great player. And you can see as they're entering pretty much right exactly next to each other, as they're doing both standard kills, nice, easy peasy. Beerful's got his own namesake boost at the end of 6-3, and as well as the Ghost, but the Ghost probably not going to help him out in the race.
No, definitely not. That was really fun to see both of them go just completely even into the Massacre room and both complete standard kills, which is a trick that is much far less than standard. It is quite difficult to pull off, and both of them pull it off easily within sync of each other. Very cool to see.
Yep, absolutely. And one of the things too, you can see they both take that high bat boost going through. And the Retro Runner standard kill actually only had 2 hits left on Massacre, while Beerful's needed all 3. And so far for what we're seeing, that little bit of extended lead the Retro Runner had was from throwing a slightly accurate flame, more accurate flame in the Massacre fight. And again, we're talking frames apart. And you'll see they're running on the same global timers, but when they're arriving those frames apart, they're getting different hammers and the game's a little bit different. So they're going to have to do a lot of reading and reacting to things they're not familiar with.
That's right. It's one of the fun parts about watching these races that I love so much is seeing the improv and the backup strats that happen when things go wrong, the sort of stuff that you don't generally see in PB attempts, because once you're at this level that these runners are on, they have a very good idea of where the global timer is for them and what they're going to expect and what they're going to see. And if they're very far off that, they're probably resetting the game. So this is them being put in a situation that you don't normally get to see during PB attempts.
Yeah, no, exactly. In a PB, it's normally, hey, I took a bad bounce here. I'm on a global timer I don't like. That's going to be it for me. Let's reset, resetty spaghetti and mash, mash, mash. But in the race environment, they're stuck with what they get. If they get a bad hammer, they're going to have to adjust to it. We've seen a lot of our racers doing that even so far. Lot of great adjustments.
That's right. Looks like we're moving into, oh, wow, Beerful. Very good adjustment there. Just speaking of, saw that. He missed that tempo, but had the presence of mind to fall straight down to the floor to get it so that it didn't despawn on him and then climb up the left side of that platform to end the fight. It will cost him some time there, but that was a really fast reaction on his part to see that.
Absolutely, and it's awesome to see not only does Beerful have a backup for it, he has a fast backup for it. A lot of times you have an idea or you know what you want to do, but with muscle memory that quick, it shows Beerful's race experience. He was able to make the quick adjustment and able to go and get down there, wasting the minimum amount of times. Absolutely incredible stuff.
That's right. Here we go. We're moving through what's known as the Rage stage, 5-1. We'll see. It looks like Retro Runner is going to use the double bird boost. And Beerful taking a death at the bat.
Absolutely. Such a tough thing. And it feels like, one of the big questions in races too is always, do you want to take the double bird boost or do you want to stay with the single bird boost? And, as you go through the stage, if you don't have that set in your mind and you hesitate, that can cost you, because the bat comes if you make your jump and you haven't committed, or if your sword timing isn't what you expect it to be, it can cost you. And I'm not sure if that's what happened with BFOB. As you can see, he just throws the safe star there, but definitely a huge costly mistake. And now he's looking for the Retro Runner to make his own mistake if he's going to climb back into this one.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Seamless. If you hesitate there at all, you may spawn that bat in a different position than what you need. that bat has to be set up far beforehand. You know, your jumps that you do prior to that setup will determine where that bat spawns on that screen. And he may have spawned that bat too high or too low than what he wanted, and may have missed that cancel on the bat as a result. But we end up basically here with BFOB an entire act behind. It looked like he was going back into 5-2 as Retro was going into 5-3. So pretty costly. I'd say somewhere around 40 seconds maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big thing now too is, you know, how much is Retro Runner aware of that? And it looks like BFOB on his end is going pretty ham trying to catch back up. He's getting a lot of ninpo, but, you know, not taking the health pickup, not going the safe route. It looks like Beerful's really trying to do a lot of the fast strategies to try and make up some of that time and capitalize if TRR does make a mistake.
Yeah, TRR incredibly consistent on the demon, even with tail skips. You're not going to expect that he's going to fail there. So I think, you know, at this point, now that you have a death, a pretty costly death at that, you know, you just got to go ham and you know, go all out to try to catch back up and hope that Retro makes some sort of mistakes. Retro said earlier this week, you know, he runs in a vacuum. He doesn't want to know what's going on, so he may not know that BFOB has taken that death, and he's probably still running all out at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, all out, but with race strats, right? I doubt we're seeing Eggs Benny, but I do think coming up this ladder right here, we're going to see some quick climbs from him.
Yeah, thus far, you know, he has been known in this tournament thus far to use basically his PB strats here, except for Eggs Benny. He did in his 1141. You know, I think a safe butt clinch cliff maybe is the only other difference. Other than that, it's all basically his PB route.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's wild. A lot of the things that we take for granted, I know we talk about race routes and race strats like they're safer, but as you can see, we've had people die trying to do safe demons throughout the tournament. We've had people die on that cliff doing the safe, you know, the quote unquote safe way of taking the cliff in 3-2. It really is. At any time, anything could happen. And for the racers, you know, they really have to stay in it and keep grinding and keep going, because you never know when something might happen. You get a bad bird, a bad subpixel, and all of a sudden you're right back in it.
That's right. So Retro took a little bit of he had a little bit of an issue going into the 6-2X.
Oh,
he
there
took
it is.
Bad hammer, but see, that's going to spawn him back at the beginning of this screen, and he's got no Nimpo and no sub weapon, which is not that big a deal. All he's going to have to do is mash the clown nose. It is going to cost him maybe 15 or 20 seconds, but he's still significantly ahead of BFOB at this point.
Exactly, but those little things, right? Those boosts that you take for granted can get him, right? And again, he's picked up some Ninpo out of habit. That's going to cost him maybe a little bit of time, and we'll see if he has a backup strat to get through this door. He's going to do like Gearful's boost, but the wrong way on the boost.
That's right. I was going to say, I don't know if he's used to doing a low percent Beerful boost there. Now he's getting mashed up using the star. That was a good strat to get into it. That got ugly there at the end.
Exactly. I mean, you know, one hit, again, that bird was right on his heels before he threw that star. Super close to getting in there. And again, Beerful not too far behind. You can see grinding it out, going fast, and he's starting to catch up. Again, if he has a bad Jackyo, he could get right back into this.
I was just about to say, we're at the point now where Beerful is caught up enough that if Retro has a bad Jackyo, this could change things. Although it looks like he makes it through pretty well, so it's going to come down to the demon here.
Absolutely. You know how those shrimps get. It can be very, very tough. And if he gets good shrimp, it's a walk in the park. If he gets bad shrimp, then he might have to sit and wait long enough. And he's going to go for the tail. We'll see if Beerful does either.
Wow, you got to wonder if he knows that Beerful is behind him, or if he just knows that this run has been inconsistent enough thus far that if Beerful is on his game, you know, he doesn't need to go with a fast strat on the demon. You know, he just needs to complete something.
Exactly, yeah, and it's a crazy, curious decision. Beerful doing the same thing, going for the tail, staying safe. And you have to wonder if they've seen, you know, earlier deaths to things, if they've adjusted based off the previous racers.
Yeah, it looks like official time for Retro is going to be a 12:28, and BFOB's coming in with a 12:45.
Yeah, a fantastic race, fantastic times. You know, even with some deaths, with some mistakes, we're still talking, you know, top 30, top 40 times in the game. Absolutely wild and fantastic, amazing speed by these runners. But it does look like Retro Runner taking game one, and Beerful of Belly's got to feel the pressure going into game two.
Yeah, they're talking to each other here in race chat, just talking about the game being trolly, giving them hell.
Absolutely, and you can hear as we have Retro Runner's audio up, you hear the screen noise in the background. As we're gonna get our guys loaded. Let's see if we can get them in and readied up. But for those of you, again, I appreciate, you know, Black Squall Ultra Minimalist in the background running around making sure our times are accurate. We've got our little clock up here as well. But again, our race admins have been doing a great job behind the scenes, really helping us out, making sure that we are on pace, and you know, everything that we're reporting to you guys is correct.
Yeah, chat bringing up a good point here. You got to wonder, there it is. BFOB is breaking out Concern Tower. We've got an eyeball there. I was about to say, it makes you wonder if we're gonna see some special stuff from Retro Runner, maybe some boob fries and Concern Tower from BFOB here once we get through the last races.
Absolutely, just some very classic things, and it's one of the interesting things as you watch all the Ninja Gaiden runners, and you get to see their personalities and their styles, you know, not only within you know, how they play the game and how they do things, but also in their streams and productions. You know, you can tell a Retro Runner, you know, boost here and there and the way that he routes, but you can also tell the stuff on the stream, the sound effects, the jokes, the songs. Every runner does it different. They have a ton of personality. It's a super fun thing, and just really nice to see all the difference in the community.
Indeed. All right, so just a reminder, Retro Runner taking that first match, or that first race rather, within the match. Retro Runner's time at 12:28, BFOB with a 12:45. I've given them the 30-second warning here, so we will be off shortly.
Yep, absolutely. I'm excited. So if you are Fearful of Belly, or if you're the Retro Runner, how much do you think you change your strategy, maybe change what you're doing, or do you stick with the game plan and hope that you can do the same route, the same run, the same plan with just fewer mistakes? How do you think you approach it if you're either on?
You know, what's interesting is I feel like we've seen in a couple of these races where it at least seems from a viewer's perspective like the next racers have changed some strats based on what they saw in the previous races. And I would have expected to see some faster butt clench cliff strats from these two, but I saw at least one, you know, a very safe slow strat being used, and it makes you wonder if one of them saw what happened to Arcus there and said, okay, you know what? I can't let that happen to me. I've got to go back to the safe strat. I'm going to change things around. I'm going to make sure I go as safe as I can.
Yeah, I you know, it's the same thing we've seen before, where Arcus, you know, attempted the center plate kill, the center platform kill in last week's races, and then kind of bailed out of it for his second race. I really don't think either of these two guys would change too much, right? I think they're both in-season runners. They're not coming off a D-Rust. They're not worried about it. They're actively grinding any percent, the both of them right now. And I think, you know, the same way if you get a bad run, a bad PB attempt, I think really what you do is you just say like, hey, I know I can do better. Let me clean it up and let's get it this time.
That's a really good point, that both of these runners are actively running this game, and there's probably going to be very few changes on both parts, just because the muscle memory there is so strong for both of them.
Yep, absolutely. And one of the big things, to your point, which is a very good thing to bring up, is, you know, their muscle memory isn't for race strats, and sure, they've done some time and some practice and put the work in, but, you know, they've got tens of thousands of attempts doing the high risk maneuvers. Do you trust the tens of thousands of muscle memories, or are you going to trust the thing you've been working on this week? I think each boost is going to be different for him, right? Eggs Benny, you're probably not going to want to do that. But for, maybe the butt clench Cliff, maybe you don't do the hesitate. I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like that's a bit of a new tech. And we've started seeing it just recently in these races.
That's right. An interesting point to make here that Retro Runner has spent the majority of his week out of town playing on a 9-inch TV screen, playing some Russian Attack. Actually just flew back today and got in literally an hour or so before we started these races. It's actually the reason why we swapped around our first match today, to make sure that he was able to get back to his place and get his setup put back together. So it makes you wonder if he's going to be affected at all by all that work, by the difference of TV screens. Looks like he just took a death to a hammer.
Oh no, that's super tough, and that definitely hurts. And at least he'll have Spin Slash. He'll be able to get that back up. But again, a tough global timer almost dies again and just makes it.
Wow. This is what we were talking about. Any sort of errors early on, you normally see them reset. And so you don't get to see these trolley 2-2 hammer bro patterns. But in a race setting, you've got to deal with them, and it's the hand you're dealt. And unfortunately, he just got a god hammer there.
Yep, absolutely. And it's those little things, right? Just being a little bit behind. We saw how before, even though running neck and neck, they got slightly different patterns. Those little sticking on a wall for a couple flames can cost you a god hammer where other people don't. And now for the Retro Runner, the whole game is going to be different for him. He's not going to know what any of the enemies do really at all for the rest of the game.
That's right. That's absolutely right. It's all going to be improv and backup. So BFOB exited 3-1 at 3:10. Looks like Retro Runner through at 3:34. So we're looking at about a 24-second lead for BFOB at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a nice lead. It's a comfortable lead. It means he can take a few knockbacks, right? But it doesn't mean he can take a death. And again, the Retro Runner, we'll see if he starts changing on the fly, starts pulling out more tricks, and really puts the speed on to try and catch up or not.
Looks like a Retro Runner going for double scree there and nails it. You gotta think he's just gonna absolutely turn it on. He's going full race route, just going back to the way he normally does things. Looks like he takes a little pause and jump strat there. A safe strat that doesn't lose too much time. Definitely faster than the jumping the cat route there. Gets the standard kill, and he's going to be off to 4-1 as well.
Yep, absolutely. And one of the big questions I had coming in is, really just thinking, was you try the Edo kill? It's a little bit more resistant to bullets, but again, probably not in the standard, portfolio, and opted not to do it. So again,
maybe not worth it just for that 0.2 or 0.3 time save for sure.
Exactly. And one of the things, as we saw the Retro Runner pulling off the double screen, did hear the double screen noise. For those of you that were curious, it was not just you. But it does remove some of that RNG from the Hammer Brothers if you do the double bird boost. And there's a lot of other strategies, little things they can do. You can add some slash cancels, you can save an input for spin slashes to try and reduce that RNG, and we'll see if maybe they decide, or the Retro Runner especially decides to do a couple of those changes just to stay safer and kind of take some of the RNG out at the cost of a 1/10 of a second for a slash cancel or not, or if he really wants to just hammer on the speed and the jets and just go as fast as he can.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So BFOB heading on into 4-3 gets the Ohan boost there, flipping and flopping, running and dropping. He is moving his way through. I'm going to take a look at the times here and see again if we can get a good idea of how far behind Retro is at this point. Looks like maybe still about a little 25 seconds, maybe somewhere in that range.
Yeah, and keep in mind, right, he's holding about the same pace, even though he took that knockback in 4-2, right, from that last guy coming off the bridge. But still, you can see that means he's catching up if he plays clean, but B-Fob playing extremely clean, no problems, no issues, and has been doing well to kind of hold his lead and not let the Retro Runner catch up to him.
Yeah, so that B-Fob heading into 5-1. Looks like he's going to get the manip, and he is heading on into it. So B-Fob entered the Doggo boss door there at 6:06. Retro Runner looked like he got in there right at 6:30. So again, if I'm doing math right, that looks like about 24 seconds still. So it looks like they're both just on pace ever since the death, and not a whole lot has changed since then.
Yep, and you can see this time Beerful not taking any chances with that bat, throws the star and stays safe, stays healthy, and he's only going to come out of 5-1 with 4 health missing, 3 from the bird and 1 from the manip. And we'll see the Retro Runner as he's coming up to the same thing. Is he going to do the double bird boost to try and catch up some time? My guess is yes.
Yeah, you got to think he's going to go ham at this point.
Yep, does get it. No early bird, nice and clean. You can see spent about 3 health to save some time. And Beerful takes the hit from the bird, doesn't cost him much, but did cost him 3 health. If he had taken the double bird boost, he'd be very low on health. But since he didn't, he's pretty comfortable. But again, this time still took the safe route for the health. Whereas in last time, when he was behind, you saw him put the pedal to the metal and ignore his health. So now B-Fob playing a little bit safer with a lead. We're moving up. We're going to see Retro Runners. Going to be the same questions. Retro Runners, right? Roll reversal. Retro Runner skipping the health to keep the pedal to the metal. Does take the Janet boost, and you can see the difference in their health bars. Retro Runner has enough health for the SP boost and the bird backup, but only if he doesn't take a hit from anything else by accident.
Yeah, Retro Runner obviously making up a little bit of time there. Got the double bird boost, did a fast drop, got the bird boost at the end of 5-2. So I mean, all that put together, you're looking at probably 4 seconds or so at least of time save. So he's doing some catching up here.
Yep, and keep in mind, in the Retro Runner's back pocket, he can always pull out that play kill that we talked about. Might be a factor and might help him get back up and in, but you can see he's only a couple screens behind Beerful right now.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting, but he is capable of coming back from that sort of deficit as long as Beerful has some moderate knockbacks and issues. And thus far, we've seen Beerful looks comfortable to take some safer strats here. So if Retro Runner can nail the harder strats and then have some fast boss fights, there's nothing that says he couldn't completely make up this sort of lead here. There's no way he can do it unless B-Fob has some issues going in through Act 6.
Yep, absolutely. You can see he's about 1 full screen behind with Beerful. Again, great with the swag star. Utilizes it in 6-1 just to make sure he has a nice clean one, because 6-1 can jack you up. But in 6-2 doesn't opt for the Fab Star, known as the safer way into it, and gets knocked back a handful of times.
Yeah, it looks like B-Fob's really having a lot of trouble here. He's getting knocked around a lot. His health bar is way down. He's having to use extra Nimpo here. This is what we were talking about. That sort of loss there with B-Fob. He's still ahead, obviously, but that lead is really closing in now at this point. And B-Fob's got to really do some health management at this point. He's halfway through his health bar, and this is not the place to be that low. He's going to have to do some different strats, some management to make sure he can get through the stage without running out of health and be able to do all the boosts.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, the Retro Runner misses the jump up the ladder, hit the ground, got hit by the gremlin. But Beerful, on the same time, also missed the exit boost. Had to go back and summon another gremlin, so both runners making a little bit of mistakes here and there. And we'll see how that stacks up and how that creates an advantage.
I'm going to watch the time for B-Fob going to this ladder. It looks like exactly about 10:30 on the clock there, and we'll see where Retro Runner goes up. We can get a good idea of how far he is behind at this point. But obviously, looks like 10:41, so 11 seconds. That lead has come down significantly at this point.
Absolutely. It sounds like he cut it more than in half. And again, if he can save a bunch of time on those bosses, if he can pull off a perfect pair, one of the people that can do it, this really is almost tied up. But again, B-Fob, no slouch on the bosses either. Can pull off a 2-cycle from the left. He's got the mash for it. As you see, B-Fob not using his boost's namesake, taking the nice safe way in to the bosses.
Yeah, he only had 1 HP there. It was going to be interesting to see if he chose to use a BFOB style strat for that health pickup, but he actually on his way down chose to cancel the time stop there and just do a safe, clean flip flop on his way up. This lead is really come down a lot. I mean, a bad Jackio on BFOB's part and some good boss fights from Retro Runner. Looks like BFOB, great fight from BFOB. Very good Jackio fight there.
Absolutely, and not a shabby one from the Retro Runner as well. Still cutting into that lead with not a full plate kill, but a good backup.
Now let's see what strat. Looks like BFOB is gonna go ahead and go straight for the heart here. No tail kill. Very good demon kill from BFOB there. Looks like he's gonna finish this out with a 12:04 of official time of 12:04.
Oh my God, and the Retro Runner right behind him. We'll see where he comes in at. Maybe a 12:10, 12:11-ish. Super, super close. Again, only 4 or 5 seconds apart.
Really incredible to see that fight go that way. I would not have expected that we would have been that close at the end of this race, given what happened to Retro Runner early on in that run.
Absolutely, yeah, and you can see just how fast he came back, how he sat in there and grinded, and getting stuck. Little mistakes here and there, right? You don't always have to take a death to let your opponent back in. Fearful made a few mistakes at the end of that game, but fortunately didn't make so many that he allowed Retro Runner to get fully back into it. But still absolutely wild as you see the concern tower again from Fearful before we get ready for race 3.
Yeah, so we've created the third room. Again, we're going into the third race tied up, and it's going to be the difference here. Going into race number 3, whoever takes this moves on into the finals.
Absolutely. Either way, we're not done seeing either racer next. We'll have whichever one of these doesn't advance will be right up again with the third place match. But again, still absolutely wild how they've been doing, how they've been running, and how just tight and close everything has been. It's been absolutely wild. And we see the Retro Runner getting in and just making his mash is where he wants it to be and just get a little practice in. You see some of the racers like to sit and relax and wait. Other racers like to go in, make sure the mash is still good, make sure movements are still moving, and do a couple squat thrusts that looks like he's doing for fun.
Yeah, why not? Just get a little workout in, expend some of that energy off. Got some nervous energy built up here going into race 3. Might as well get some squats, work on legs. We tend to skip leg day way too often, so got to get it in where you can.
Absolutely. If there's one solid rule, you never skip leg day. It's always important. You got to make sure you don't get stuck in the trap tiles. You got to make sure your jumps are smooth. You can't skip leg day.
That's right. Never skip leg day. All right, so we've got both runners in the race room. We're just waiting on them to ready up here, and we will be off to the next race. I think the official times for the last one, in the race time GG, it looked like it was a 12:04 for BFOB and a 12:09 for Retro Runner. Some of our race mods here were saying it might have been around the 12:12 range. Either way, under a 10-second difference there. So super close race.
Exactly, and it's the kind of thing where you're one death apart, and it's how it could be. We saw that death made the difference kind of in the first race, and it's looking like it might do it again in the second one. And we'll be curious to see if both runners do a deathless run this time. We'll see how it goes.